Want to find out what a helicopter has got to do with a painting program? Well, come with me and I'll show you.
Simply Painting is underwritten by Winsor & Newton, makers of Galleria Flow Formula acrylic colors and paintbrushes, manufacturers of fine art materials since 1832.
Welcome to Simply Painting. I'm Frank Clarke and we're here in Derrygimla Bog in Connemara in the west of Ireland. Now, why are we here? Let me tell you. This was the landing site of the first transatlantic flight, which landed here in 1919, and it was Alcock Brown. They landed just over here to the right, and unfortunately they didn't have quite as nice a landing as I've just had, because they ended with their nose, or the nose of the plane, in the bog. But they were okay, and all was well. And this also happens to be the site of the Marconi telegraph. This was the first telegraph station, or link, between America and here, the other half being in Cape Cod in America. But anyway, what's that got to do with painting, as you say? Let's look and see if we can make a little subject while we're here. Behind me I've got Roundstone Mountain. Now we can do something with that. And just over here we've got some turf. So why don't we combine the two and make a little painting? So what I propose is we'll take some sketches, we'll head back to the studio, and let's see what we can do with it. Did you enjoy the story about Alcock Brown? Interesting, wasn't it? Well, I felt that that was probably not the best place to pick to paint a picture, but still I think we did a nice job with it. So before we do that and see the picture, let's first of all talk about the materials we're going to need to paint it. And very quickly, once again, we have acrylic paints. We've got 8 tubes, and they are burnt umber, raw sienna, ultramarine, cadmium yellow, titanium white, vermilion, phthalo green, and permanent rose. And for this picture, we're going to take away the permanent rose because we don't need it. Next, we're going to talk about the brushes. We've got the large brush into the water. We've got the medium-sized brush, and we put that into the water. And the small brush I'm just going to keep to one side there for a moment, and I'll tell you why later. We have the palette to put the paints out on. We have the cloth to dry the brush, and we have the water and the water jar. And last, we're going to talk about the canvas panel, which once again is 14 by 10, and once again it's in landscape. So enough about all that now. Let's get and have a look and see what we actually did. And here it is. And let me talk about it for a minute. Well, first of all, I noticed that there's a monument on the right-hand side there. Let me tell you what that is. That is the actual landing site where poor old Alcock Brown landed. And they could have picked somewhere slightly leveler, couldn't they? Anyway, that's what it is. To the left of that, we have some turf. And behind that, we have Roundstone Mountain. So I thought we combined the three and we paint a little picture where we might concentrate a bit on the sky this time. But once again, what do? Have some more fun. Horizon, sky, middle and foreground, it never changes. So the first thing we do is let's put in a horizon line. Now this time we're going to do it slightly different, because you saw me pairing a pencil there when I started. Well, the reason was I'm going to put it in by pencil this time. I showed you how to do it with the brush. Now have a look and see how you would do it if you just had a pencil. And that's it. That's simple, wasn't it? That's the drawing over. You don't use many pencils in this series, do we? And a point to mention to you, just about sketching, don't be afraid of it. A sketch is not something you show to somebody else. It's only for your information. So it could be as simple as anything. I'll just tell you that in passing. Anyway, back to the picture again and let's look. Now the first thing we do is we're going to put in this sky. So starting from the back and working forward, let's first of all put the paints to one side, get out our paint. And what I mean by when I say starting from the back and working forward is I'm going to put in the blue part of the sky first. So I'm going to put out some raw sienna, some blue, and some white. Those are the first three colours we need. And a little more white than the other two. You know why? Because we use more white, don't we? And once again, talking in percentages. Isn't that the way we talk about it? We say 2/3 white, 1/3 that, whatever. That's the way we do it all through the series. Let's take I would say, in this case, 75% white and 25% of the raw sienna. Let's put it in. Start from the top, work right down as far as the horizon line. Now, you give it a good swish in there. Yeah. Now, here's another little thing. It's a good idea sometimes to hold the brush a bit longer. Yeah, that's why there's long handles on the brushes, by the way. Now, the reason for that is not that they want you to be miles away with the handle, but so that you're back far enough from the picture to see what you're doing. That's why there's long handles, particularly on acrylic brushes. So you can have a good look at it. I think I told you the story before, didn't I, about the artist in England who had a studio which was 40 feet long, and he used to race down to the end of it every time he put a dab of paint on the canvas. And then he'd come back up and he'd carry on because he wanted to see what it looked like. And he was a very fit man. So you have two hobbies in one. Yes. Now, let's put that in there for a moment. Now, let me just give this a little dry this time, because I'm not going to mix in the blue until I get it a little bit dry on this occasion. Now, I've given it a good drying this time. And it's necessary to dry it quite a bit in the beginning like that when it's the sky, because if you half dry it and the pigment is still sticky, the brush will stick to it. Just a little tip for you. Now, it's okay, blue now, blue and white. And I'd say more white, a lot more white. Again, probably 75% of the paint to be white. Now let's put in some of the blue. Let's see where it is. Oh, there's a bit in there. Now, acrylic paint does have a tendency to darken, so be careful. Allow for it. There's nothing wrong with it darkening. This was one of the reasons that people used to say, oh, acrylic paint's awful, it darkens. But your watercolours lighten. Nobody ever complained about that. Now, I'm just generally swishing in a little bit of a blue paint. Yes, a little bit there as well. Now, this looks a pretty raggy looking thing at the moment, but wait till you see when we get going at it now. Because the next move is we're going to put in some white. Now, I don't want to cover up all of the nice yellowy colour, you see, so I let it shine through a little bit. Yeah. Now I'm kind of scumbling once more in the back and forward movement, see it? Now, if we look back to the picture again, we're going to see that on the right hand side here we have got a dark cloud. Now, to make that fella up, we've got to put out some more paint. And the paint, once again, believe it or not, is vermilion, because that gives us a nice winey colour. Always put the top back on your paint when you're finished, otherwise Murphy's Law comes into place, and that means that you will stand on it, you'll lean on it, you'll do something, but you'll have paint all over yourself and all over the whole place. Now, how's that? If you feel it's too dark, you can lighten it. This is the wonderful thing about acrylics. You couldn't do this with any other medium, because once it's on, it's on. But in this case, now look at that. Isn't that fine? And now we can start adding in a bit of white to soften it. You know that word? That softening word. Look at that. I think I'm getting exactly what I want here now. Now, if you wanted, you could you can just run the brush ever so lightly on it, and that softens it up. There's another hair. There'll be no hairs left on this brush. Of course there will. Look at they shed hairs. Not going to do a bit of harm to the brush. Now I'm going to put one more bit of white in there. So I'm concentrating a bit much, maybe overly on the sky this time, because I want you to get used to doing a nice sky. Are you happy with that? I think I'd be happy. I'm just going to put a little bit, just to match it up. Don't have it all kind of one-sided sky, so just a little bit there. And we take off that. Look at the hair. No shortage of hairs, have we? No, that won't do any harm. Now I think I'd be happy. Yes, that's enough. You can overwork a sky. You can really. So let's put the brush back in there again and have a look back at the picture. And we see now the next move is the mountain. Now, how would you paint the mountain? Well, the first thing you do is, before you did anything with the mountain, you put up more white paint. So you see, when I said to you about using a lot of white paint, I meant it. well, a lot more white paint. So brush out of water again. And this, as I said before, is great because it means you can keep using the one brush because you can keep washing it and drying it and using it. Now, the same colour as your sky. So blue, a little bit of the red and the white. Mix the three together and off you go. I'd say a third of each. This occasion, yeah, that should be fine. Now let's pick out where this all... Now you can, if you like, don't mix your paint, by the way, too much on the palette. Mix it on the board a little bit. You can take your time with this. You can, say it's up there and it comes down like that, and then it's going to get heavy over the far side because there's a kind of reverse situation with this picture, that the dark side of this picture is over here. That's the dark side. Because there's actually light coming in this way. It's coming in this way. Not as you might have thought. From there, you would have thought because that's dark that this side of the picture should be dark, but it's not. Take my word for it, that's the way it was. Now, that's not quite right there. I'm looking as I go. I keep looking at the picture I'm painting from just to see that it's similar, because I must have it looking somewhat the same, and you can adjust it as you go. Now let's darken up a little bit. So 3 colours again: red, blue, and a tiny bit of white just to. Now let's get, look at that now. That's grand, isn't it? Now right down to the edge there. Now we can fill in this bit here. Now if you feel it's too dark, there's nothing in the world to stop you lightening it, is there? And perhaps we put just white, add it into that nice bit of mesh you got in the middle there. And then let's just look at that. See that? Isn't that nice? Yeah, that's the big brush. It's great for this job because you can cover very big, wide areas very quickly. Now I think I've enough of that. Let's put that away now. And our next move is now let's look back just for a moment to the painting, and we see that the horizon line is here, and just above it we have this sort of, it's a rocky area way in the distance. So why don't we put that in with a middle-sized brush? So we need another colour, and that is yellow. And we're going to need another colour as well. Can you guess? It's burnt umber. So we're having a rare old time. We've got all the colours out here. Look at that. We've got 6 of them out around the edge. Don't put them in the centre here, or you'll have nowhere to mix the paint. Now, little look-see there. Yes, okay. So we've got yellow and a bit of blue, which is going to give us green, and a bit of the raw sienna. Put those 3 together, and let's see what we have now. And that's going to come up like that. Do you see that? Like that. I'm going to add a bit of brown to that because it's a bit mean looking. Now, if you find it's too dark, you can tone it down. If it's too light, you can do the opposite. See that? Now, what I've done is I'm letting the paint mix a little bit on the brush. Look, I've put that, the raw sienna, and the brown. And you see the 3 bits. If I can just hold that brush up, can you see the 3 colours on that? In other words, I'm letting the mixture happen on the canvas rather than on here. Because if I mix here, I just get a flat colour. Now watch what I do when I do this. Look, see the way the colours, look at them all. Look, they all go in. See them? That's a trick now. You didn't know that one, did you? You probably did, of course, but it's a good idea, though. Now a little bit of yellow in there, just to, there we are, just to run it off there. So in other words, don't ever make a flat colour thing. Make it nice and mottledy colour. What I mean by that, look, let the colours all run together. Now a bit of yellow in there, I think, another bit more there, and perhaps a bit of brown in there. Look at that. Are you happy with that now? Now I'm going to come down a bit there. Now that's it. Now, there's a very light colour there. If you look back to the picture very quickly again, you see it. That's the light colour because this light is coming this way. So why don't I put in that light colour? Let's swish around a bit. Now the light colour is obtained. I'm going to say got by. There's no such word as got by, is there? I got by. Now, by mixing yellow, white, and a bit of raw sienna. And then we can always lighten more. This is the beauty of this paint. You've got the choice of painting light to dark or dark to light. It doesn't make a darn bit of difference. Either way, it'll work fine. It's a very obedient paint. Now I'm going to go right down behind there with that, and perhaps just a little Swisher Brown, just brown by itself. I haven't cleaned the brush now in ages because the colour that's on the brush, I'm letting it all kind of link in together. See that now. Now, our next move now is we've now reached the right-hand side where we got to put in this monument job. But it's kind of built up on a pile of rocks and all sorts of things. So let's do that now. Now, the same amount of yellow, blue, and raw sienna once again. And let's put in this. It goes kind of like that, doesn't it? Yeah, it's there. Now we can lighten or darken whichever side. Now it kind of comes down at that, and we've got to put some rocks in here. So we need a bit of rock colour. Well, how do we get rock colour now? I'll show you now in a second, don't worry. Now, how about our monument? Should we put that in next? Why don't we? It's lovely and enjoyable. When you get the picture rolling forward, it's great fun, isn't it? Yeah. So now white only. And make a, what would they say, make a statement. Don't foostle it around with this thing. It's a nice, fine, big, look, it goes up there like that and down there like that. That's all there's to it. Now we'll darken one side of it in a minute. Just leave it there for a second. It's not going to go anywhere. But what we'll concentrate on is put a few rocks down here. What colour would those rocks be? Well, if you take some of that red and some of that blue and mix it there with a tiny bit of brown, and wait till you see what you get. You get what they call a rock colour, see it? Might be a bit more brown in it. Ah, there we are. So it's red, blue and brown, these rocks. See them? And just, there it's better now. Now we can shade them in a minute. Don't worry about the shading. And there's another big rock there, so let's just clean the brush. Because it doesn't really matter. You can go over it and everything else. You can run riot. You can run riot. Now, a bit of blue there. That's better, isn't it? That's probably a better colour now. They were getting a bit pinky looking, those rocks. So you can make changes in midstream. Now, I'm just going to put a bit more in here of kind of greeny grass. So let's do that. So I'm going back to my blue, yellow and raw sienna, same amount of each, because this is going to be a bit darker here, isn't it? Because it's in shade, you see it? And in fact, why don't I put out a bit of phthalo green? Just to show you. Yeah, there it is. It's a great colour, this. I'm not one for greens, to tell you perfectly straight, but on this occasion I'm just going to... Now, I always mix phthalo green with something else, because if you don't do it, you'll get a horrible garish colour. Now look at that's quite nice now. Now back to our other mixtures here. Let's put a bit more now. It may probably need to be lightened there again, but because I'm going to get over here and get stuck into this turf in a minute here. Let's have a quick look at the turf. It looks to be, it's a big mound of stuff, isn't it? Well, that's very easy. Just pick a spot and off you go. And turf is cut in slivers. Like they're long blocks. I think I showed you one time, didn't I? So I'm kind of painting them as if it was slivers of turf. There. Look, that's... this is coming on fine now. We can shade it in a minute. Uses plenty of brown paint, doesn't it? Oh, what would we do only for this, our old pal, Burnt Umber? Sure, he's a great man. Now, once I get down to the end of this, I'll then fill in some of the colour in the bottom. I think that's enough of that now. That's a good rick of turf there, isn't it? Now, the idea there is a thing called counterchange. And that means that the lightest part is against the darkest part, so it shows it up. Now, I'm just going to put my little colouring down the back of that monument. So it's blue and red, mixed with a tiny bit of white. Yeah. That's the shadow on it, isn't it? And then, of course, if the shadow was there, it's also down there now. We can give it another coat of white if need be. Don't worry about that. Now, Da, da, da. I'm working backwards and forwards, but we're working in a line down, though. Do you notice that? We're not running around the place like a bucket of frogs. We're making sense to it. Or so I think, anyway. And let's darken up this. I want to put some more darkness on those rocks there. Now, let's see, they need to be outlined a little bit to show that they're rocks. We can put a bit of white on them and see how that one is. Ah, that's grand. Now we're getting the idea here. When they get a bit of white on them, they'll be fine. Now put that brush away for a moment. Get back to the big fella. We got some fine foreground to go in here now. Now it's raw sienna, yellow, and a bit of the blue again. That's not the right colour, is it? That's more blue than that. There we are now. That's better. See? And this goes in around our turf here, you see, because come on, you can whistle and sing as well. You can enjoy yourself on this one. Now, this is the beauty about this is that if we, as I say, if we finished this picture and we weren't happy, there's nothing to stop us just going over the whole thing again and starting all over again. Nothing whatsoever. That's acrylic for you. See? I'm coming right down here now. I'm going to, once you block it in, this is what this is called. It's called blocking in. In other words, it's the first coat. You know, so it's a nice way of calling blocking. I don't know why they called it blocking in, but I suppose it has. I would have thought first coat would be just easier, but you see, these little statements are made not to make it easier for you, but to confuse you, aren't they? Now, I'm going to put a little bit down there. So I've covered it all pretty well now. Now we can start concentrating. Now, if you notice, I've painted around these rocks. Do you see that? I'm going to give it a little bit of a dry. Actually, the main interest in this picture, for me, is the fact that I got a nice bit of white there, which I like to play with a bit. Let's just come out a bit there that way. I want to... Now, that's good. Now some little rushes and reeds and things, look. They go down like that. These are just downward strokes of the brush, look, just like that. See that? We'll put in some little colour and stuff into it in a minute now, but before we do, see, we're building all the time. Now back to our medium-sized brush again. Let's look at some pieces of turf. Now, when they build these rigs, they didn't obviously have them all. It wasn't that neat, particularly with the sheep knocking around. The sheep were trying to jump on it and knock it down, and the likes of me picking up turf and showing it to you and things like that. It doesn't do the poor rick any harm, or any good, should I say. Now I'm going to put a bit lighter colour in there. I want it to stand out. See that? We're just dabbing little, see? Because when the light catches the turf, well, that's where it'll be highlighted. This is highlights. Oh, this is great fun. Now I'm going to start my highlighting down here. A little bit of white now. This is just a tiny, tiny bit of that grey from the centre that's in there anyway. But in general, it's nearly pure white. You know? I hope by now you're all doing this, because it's very easy. But if you don't try it, you'll never know. And I get so many letters from people who say, you know, Frank, I never knew until I tried I could paint, and I never knew that nature was so lovely. I'm just putting a bit more white on there. But you won't until you try. And you will really start to look at nature for the first time when you start to paint, because you begin to realise, then you take note of the thing. And I really believe that if we all did that, you know, from a very young age, or it doesn't matter what age, but the younger the better, maybe we'd kill a lot of vandalism and everything if we had people who appreciated what we have. Now, I'm going to, remember I put the little brush to one side. Let me show you why. This is a quick blast of bog cotton. You ever heard of bog cotton? Well, bog cotton is something that it grows in the bog, and in fact it's cotton. But when it comes out, it looks like this. It's all little white dabs here and there, for all the world like little fluffy white balls. There we are. Now we'll also have some yellow ones. But you're going to buttercups. So there's nothing to stop you dabbing away here, putting in a few little, I hope that's showing up, is it? And the last thing I thought maybe was that there was some poppies in that here. Let's put in a few poppies. Just a little bit of red. Red's a great man for catching your eye. Before I do my last little bit here now. A few little now the last thing we do is clean the brush, get the blue and the brown out together. What are we going to do now? Come on, you tell me. I'm going to put a little bird in up here. I always do, don't I? And having done that, brush back in the water and say to you that that's all for this lesson. So until we meet again, you remember, try it out. And you too can have some more fun simply painting.